Yeah guys, Coffee here. Welcome back to another video on Eternal Magic. So today I want to be talking about the Mage. So the Mage is actually a lot of fun and it does some super high DPS, especially when it comes to AoE. And in fact, when it comes to single target, I would almost say it's as good as the other classes, but only because it's got better opportunities to kite rather than like over the Assassin or the Spellblade as an example. Okay, so we're going to be going over two builds, and we're going to be talking about mainly the sparks and how it works. I feel like this is the best build because just of the raw DPS and how it works. Alright, so first of all, we've got this stance here, the Spirit Burning. What it does is that it allows you to use your second skill, Chromation, in order to put 5 layers of spark onto the enemy. And then the active itself, by pressing T, it will spread that 5 sparks out to all the enemies nearby. And then our 4, it will cause an explosion that hits every enemy nearby, and the more sparks they have, the more damage it does. So it's a very simple rotation, but it's extremely powerful. Then we have our 1, Fireball, which does single target damage, and it also restores your mana. You're going to be using that quite frequently, otherwise you will run out of mana, and it also applies 1 layer of spark, which you'll probably use on your second or third rotation, because your Chromation will be on cooldown. Fire Control for number 3, what it does, it sets the enemy on fire, dealing 1100 damage, and then if it has sparks on it, then Fire Control is cast on it. It's yet another debuff. So this build does single target damage and also AoE damage, and it's really useful. It's really good. So we're going to have a crack at the rotation itself so you guys can see it in action and see how it's supposed to work. Okay, so this is my training dummy here. I'm going to be casting number 2. And that's got a 1.4 second cast down. And then it's going to use Spark on all the enemies nearby. Or on the one enemy, sorry. And then I would use my active. And what it does is it refreshes it. And then everything around it also has the debuff now. And it's slowly taking damage. Then I would use my 4. And it explodes everything in the area, instantly causing a lot of damage. So when it comes to AoE, when it comes to trash mobs, you're going to do a lot of damage because you can do this rotation quite fast. Just press 2, T, and then 4. And as you can see, Chromation is still on a 7-8 second cooldown. So you want to cast 2 or 3 fireballs. If it's a boss you're fighting at this point, you would go ahead and you would use 3 at this point, and then you would place the ignition on it, which continuously does more damage. It still has the sparks, and that only came off cooldown a moment ago. You would go ahead, you would press T, then you would use 4 again, then you would go back and use your 2 to add the spark straight back onto it, and then you can explode it again, still placing more damage. Go back to 1, and then you can rebuild it. So as you can see, the rotation itself is actually not that hard. A mage is quite simple once you've got to learn the abilities themselves. The difference between a good player and a really good player is going to be able to just manage those rotations correctly and understand the cooldowns and how they work. Now these actives over here, the reason I chose those actives over some other actives that some people will be like, no, you want to use the Fiery Blow or the Arson or something like that, is because of the cooldowns that already come from your 1 to 4. Because they've got such low cooldowns and the damage is quite high, I feel like using this one here, for example, the 1.4 second, it just doesn't have the right amount of damage, or it doesn't give you as much as using your normal spells can. So there's just no point having it. The Fiery Blow, this can be useful, I suppose. It can be sort of useful. You know, maybe you want to use State of Immobilization, you want to freeze the opponents. Okay, it can be that good. It can be okay for that, but I just don't think that it's worth the time and the mana and just the skill slot. So I've gone ahead and chosen my skills a little bit differently because of the simple rotation you've already got and how good it is. So this would be your overall rotation, what I'm about to show you now. So it would be 2, and then you would go ahead and use your T, then you would place 4, and you would explode everything. You'd start building up your stacks again, okay, and then at this point you would use Fire Control, and then you know your time is starting to run out. You would use your Chromation, you go back to T, and then you would use your Q. And you explode that, and then you press your E, and then you press the Q when it gets to the enemies, and then you explode them. Your stacks were still at 5, so I went ahead and used my explosion. My Chromation's come back off. I've gone ahead and now I use my active again and back into 4. So it's actually crazy amount of AoE damage, and the type of control that you have on the mage is thoroughly enjoyable. And as you can see, it's very pleasing to the eye. So yeah, lots of AoE damage and single target damage because of the fireball and the fire control itself. Just a really overall good build. Of course, I've used Overlord here. I didn't actually use it in that section there. It's a habit where I would use Overload, for my Awakening skill, which we'll go over in a minute. So the Awakening skills, what they do basically, this one here fires one ice spear. This spear deals 1900 frost damage to enemies imposed with tiny ice pieces, and the max level is 3, so it will add 3 layers onto the enemy. This one here will ignite the enemy, does 1200 damage, so slightly less than the ice. However, it creates 1 layer of flame ejection, dealing damage to everything in range, so a bit of an AoE, 3 layers maximum, and then flame ejection every 2 seconds deals 431 damage. So it's probably better than the actual ice one after 4 seconds total, and validity for 10 seconds. So it will just continue to damage them for 10 seconds. This one here, enemies at a distance of 8 meters receive 1300 nature damage, as well as player actives hidden power max 3 layers. I don't actually know what that does. Sorry guys. Nor this ability here doesn't actually explain it unless you go ahead and start casting your spells. So I would use something like this. I would go U, now I would press R, and then I would start casting fire mainly because I want to do AoE damage. As you can see, it's going up. And let's try the ice one. There we go. And then you go back to 2. And you refresh that timer, just like so. And then you would use your 4. And as you can see, it did laser, but the damage itself does not seem like that huge. Anyway, that's pretty much it for the Awakening skill. Not as impressive in my opinion as the other classes, but nevertheless, it is just as powerful overall because of the simple rotation, but how effective the AoE is. Okay, so to quickly finish up this build here, obviously you would go to strikes with bundles of energy, interrupt the target spell. That's important to do when it comes to heroic dungeons and such, because tanks will die. I'm not going to go through all of these skills. I'm just going to point out the ones that I've used. As you can see, most of them aren't even capable of being used in this build. There's a couple here, but I mean, they just don't work as well. So I'm going to cover the stuff that I know and explain it to you guys really quickly. So this one here, it basically will make it so your explosion is better and does more power. Burning every 2 seconds deals fire damage, 63 sparks, yada yada yada, last 20 seconds. So that's what these passives are. They just always, the passives will make it so your normal abilities are better usually. This one here, once again, it's working with the explosion. Burning that, absolute must for this build, does 20% more damage over time. Because we're doing dots, need to have that. And I've gone and used this one here because of the overload and the meteorite rain. Pretty much, there's not much else here that you would use for this build. You might use the enhanced cremation. The action cremation is reduced by 2 seconds, dealing increased damage by 20%. That is very useful. But also, if you saw, the Q and E does a respectable amount of damage on their own. So they're definitely not something you would just turn your eye away from, because as you can see, it's pretty good. Okay, so this next build that I want to show you guys is it's a single target damage. It's got a huge amount of damage. It really does, but I would not use it if you were not a very experienced player, because it's highly skilled in my opinion. It's taken a few times for me to actually practice this rotation, and I still continue to mess it up. So we're going to quickly talk about the skills and what I've changed differently and what they do, and then we're going to go ahead and get that rotation and crack. So here I've changed it to Knowledge of Emptiness. What that has done, it has changed it so a different type of passive happens when I use my abilities. I will get 10 layers of knowledge, which will increase my mana a lot, and you really need to have a lot of mana because this build consumes a lot of mana. Now you want to use Fireball over the other skills once again because it restores 5%. It's a percentage, it's not a flat rate, which will, because my mana is actually a lot higher, therefore you get a lot more mana restore. So just overall useful and still high single target damage. Spear of Thunder, that is depending on the different abilities here. So this is not the one you would want to use. You want to use the Thunder Control. So what Spear of Thunder would normally do, it does 1200 damage, but it uses 800 mana, and it does quite a lot of damage on its own. But you want to have this active over here. I don't fully understand the differences because of the translation, but I did a couple of tests and I checked which one was better, and overall Thunder Control, in my opinion, was definitely proven to be getting better results. Energy dispersion, what you want to take away from this is that it reduces the selected target takes 15% more damage. So that's pretty important considering we're about to do burst damage. Thunderbolt, it just acts an enemy with lightning and deals 747 damage. Nothing noteworthy, but the other skills are not that good either in this build. So your Q, it's similar to your second skill, Thunder Control. It will just use a lot of mana very quickly in order to do a high amount of burst damage. So the key abilities that we want to take into account what this build works around is the Q, 2, E, and your passive, because it's mana regeneration and not actually using mana. Now E, what it does, it will enter a reset state for 8 seconds. So basically you will press E and then you'll press Q and then you'll press 2 and then you'll press Q again, because what we've done, we've gone ahead and we've reduced the cooldown as quickly as much as we can. And we've extended the rollback as long as we can, and we might get the 2 cast in before it rolls back. So it will roll back to the mana that you used to have, so you can get all the burst damage out, and then get your mana back, and then do the burst damage again. So it's actually a lot of damage. And then we have Overload, so your damage is increased by 25% in the last 10 seconds, so you pop this just before you popped your E, to be able to increase the damage from your bursty abilities. So Thunder Control, Bad Weather, these are the ones that you want to have. Thunder Control changed our number 2 to slightly better, in my opinion. Then we have Bad Weather, Gap Inside, deals 20% more damage if the target is not killed in the cast. The next cast, Spear of Thunder or Challenge of Thunder, is reduced by 50%, just, costs. It's more about the damage that it does. This one here, Reverse Flow, each time you damage nature with magic damage, restore mana for 100 points. Just need more mana, very important. So there's some other ones that we can use in here, and you can have a look around, but through trial and error, this is the best build that I've come up with for the burst. If you guys recommend something else that I should change in this build, let me know in the comments below. So then we have this one here, Elements Master, Overload causes 10% more damage. We spoke about that before. So basically it's just going to increase the burst that you're going to get. So we're going to give the rotation a go, and you guys can see what it's like. So the very first thing that I'm going to be doing when it comes to doing this is telling me to use my Q. It's because my mana is full. But what we're going to do is we're going to try and hopefully at all times your layers don't actually drop. So I'm going to be casting Fireball, and you can see here I've got Knowledge of Emptiness, and it's going to start increasing that. And now if you look on the left, my mana is actually going up. Okay, so that's kind of important because you actually want to have 10 layers before you go ahead and start your rotation, so you've got more mana that you can play with for all your different abilities. Alright, now we're going to give it a go. So I'm going to go and use my 3. It's going to basically make it so they take more damage. I'm going to press E, and then I'm going to press Q, and I'm going to press 2, and I'm going to press Q. Okay, so now this will be coming back any second. There we go. And then I'm going to use my T, and then I'm going to use my Q, and my 2. And what this is doing, now I've got 10 seconds of being able to cast this spell as much as I can, because I've got 3 mana usage. So I'll go ahead and cast 2 again. It's not taking mana, now it's taking mana. But at which point, at some point between there, see this is where I said highly skilled, you should have actually used Energy Dispersion again, because you wanted to drop their, you wanted to make it so they took more damage. And also, I forgot to use my R, my Overload. So 2 mistakes in there that I could have fixed and done potentially another 25% damage on 7 or 8 skills there, which would have been overall another 10k damage that I've just missed out on. So that's what I mean by when I say highly skilled and a bit of practice to actually get used to it and doing it. But as you can see, when I press Q, 3,700, this is not exactly a character that is highly geared or anything to sort. So that's actually a monster of a hit. And of course you keep using your 1 because you don't want your stacks to drop. And then every time you use your mana, every time you use your Fireball, you're going to get back a lot more mana. So that's pretty much all there is to this build. The ultimate is still going to be the same for your mage. So pretty much you just, that's your awakening. We already spoke about that. And that covers it. I mean, that's pretty much it. Make sure you use your interrupts and spells, of course, on the minions that are attacking the tank. Please, guys, save the tanks. And if you're a healer, actually do heals. Anyway, that's it. Thank you for watching. Make sure to check out our other videos. You can support the channel by showing the love and commenting below and checking out those we are affiliated with. You can also get access to all our different social medias, which I'll link down below. Until next time, Coffee out.